Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 33, I believe, and we're going to be talking last night's UFC and a couple of other things, a couple of other bits. You can find this show on YouTube in the video format as well as the audio format at all the usual radio and podcasting apps. And of course, you could check out the show's social media at Danny Batten FS on Instagram and Twitter, and the Ace Podcast Nation, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. All the links for each are in the description for the show below, or in the show description on the podcasting apps and platforms. So, joining me to talk MMA and more, first of all, we have former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend, Mr. Danny Batten. How are you, mate?
I was
going to cut out the legend bit. Do you know? I just
don't do that. That's the best bit.
No, you all right, buddy?
Yeah, I'm all good, sir.
And joining us, I'm very excited to say that we have another UK MMA legend,
yes,
legend for all around the place. Cage Warriors, Cage Rage, and loads of other places. Ex-MMA middleweight, Mr. Denniston Mad Max Sutherland. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you finding the time, and of course, you coach with Mr. Batten as well.
Yeah,
so you have the pleasure. But so you two, fresh off your trip to Fight Island, which is we're now done with Fight Island for the time being. No more cards. Danny, what do you think overall of the standard of cards which they've put on from Fight Island? Was it worth traipsing across the world, like from a company's point of view, to put those?
Yeah. On? I mean, it's got fight shows back up and running, hasn't it? And we have had a couple of amazing feature fights. Some of the fight cards are a little bit thin on the ground with really top well-known fighters that we'd be normally accustomed to. But hey, they're pugging out shows, they're giving us content to talk about, and it's getting results on fighters' resumes and building them up or knocking them down, or as the case could be. I think it's all good. After experiencing it, it's so well run out there. It really, really is. But like I just to reiterate, really, they are just bringing in fighters from all angles and really pugging them out. So some of them, are not always the most well known, but there's nothing wrong with that. You've got to start people from grassroots to get them known.
However, you say that. What I do think is they've done a tremendous job of building new stars, because I think when you look at this last 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it's been, you've got, just from the kind of prelim shows, you've got guys like Modestus, you've got guys like Jack Shaw, Krymaev, who are coming out of these weeks on fire, who the world has taken notice, the world knows their names now, and more people are watching the UFC over these last 4 weeks than perhaps, some of these, especially the fight night cards, they wouldn't have been that well watched on ESPN and stuff. Your hardcore fans would have watched them, but maybe there was more eyes on them for sure, and I think some of these talents will have come out better for it. I mean, the one that stands out is obviously Krymaev, because he fought twice in a week or something stupid. Denniston, what did you think overall? Like, how did the UFC do? What were the cards like over the what was it, four shows or 3 shows?
Yeah, I think it's 4 shows. I think it was amazing. I mean, obviously because of this coronavirus thing, everybody's locked down. I was concerned when I heard, UFC is still going to have shows on. Thinking, are we doing this, this kind of careless behavior thing, where we don't respect the coronavirus. Listen, I got my conspiracy theories as well, but I don't think we should put a whole industry at risk.
Yeah.
But when I saw what the UFC did and I heard about all the testing, and having gone through it now myself, it's spot on. If you're gonna do any MMA shows right now, you're not doing it like that. Just don't bother.
Yeah, and I think obviously you've got these Cage Warrior shows coming up in September, the 3 back-to-back shows. The fact that Cage Warriors is no longer on BT and is on UFC Fight Pass, I would almost guarantee that Cage Warriors will be exactly the same. And then it's up to Bellator really as the kind of third biggest company, I would say, behind those two maybe. They've got to do the same. So obviously last week we had Bellator's Lewis Long on twice. And he as are most fighters, he's desperate to fight. But Bellator as a company have got to follow the footsteps of what UFC have done. Make sure it's safe for not just the fighters, but for the coaching staff, the commentators, the referees, the backroom staff. And I think if you notice, Dan, over the last couple of weeks, a lot of the fighters have been dedicating their fights to the makeup artist who works for the UFC. She's got I don't want to say the wrong thing. She's got cancer and it's like quite a stage 3 or 4. Obviously, for someone who's ill like that, I would imagine, cannot be out there because that would be incredibly dangerous for someone in that position. But it's the same for everyone. Everyone, whether it's a makeup artist or a fighter, they've got to be protected and looked after.
If I point something out, if I say something, can I say something? Maybe you catch up, Danny. I just think that it's going to be hard for any other show except for the UFC to do this, to do it the way the UFC did it, because there's a lot of money, man. There's a lot of output. There's a lot of money they spend on just having a safe zone,
Denniston, though, do you think that the UFC will fund partially Cage Warriors doing it though, because they want content for the UFC Fight Pass app, they need it, so they want Cage Warriors shows on, which is why I think you found that the Cage Warriors show went ahead, the last one just before lockdown. So okay. Do you think that the UFC potentially could help out Cage Warriors financially with that?
I know they could, but I don't know what the relationship is with with the companies. So I don't dare say. I don't know if they're cool like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on what they're contracted to and all that ins and outs of it, I suppose. But ultimately, whether you're running as a multi-billion-dollar company like the UFC, or you're running as a local MMA show in regional places, if you can't run safely and protect the people who are going to be fighting, attending, and coaching, and refereeing, and everything else in between, then you shouldn't be running at the moment. It's just,
I agree.
Unfortunately, it's just the way it is, isn't it?
On the 17th of August, they're doing the first ever drive-through MMA event for contenders in Norwich.
Right, okay.
So that's going to be. I've got a few fighters on there. Well, you literally drive in. It's going to be on big screens. You'll be able to see the cage. It's going to be on a elevated level, but mainly you'll be seeing it on screens like the old drive-in cinemas. So that's going to be first of its kind.
Who would have thought that would come back in drive-in cinemas? I'm old enough to remember that, man. Fondly.
No, that sounds really cool. I got to say, that sounds like a really good idea. And I think all companies, businesses, everyone's coming up with different ways, creative ways to keep rolling, because if they don't, ultimately most places, whatever you are, whether you're MMA or whether you're a pub or a restaurant or a gym, ultimately you can't stay closed forever.
No,
you've got to find a way to. You've got to find a way to keep going, haven't you? Okay. So we had a really interesting card. We're going to talk about a bit of the prelims. Look, so we're going to talk about the Nathaniel Wood fight in detail, and a couple of others. But I wanted to start with the Betch Kohea fight. She fought Pani Kinzard. Betch Kohea was a heavy favourite, at least in my eyes, and I'm pretty sure she was a pretty heavy favourite going into the fight. And I didn't think she looked great in the first round. Right at the end of the first round, the 10-second buzzer clapped to say there was 10 seconds left. She put her thumbs up as if to say, "Oh, good round." she obviously got confused in the moment, and she got clocked, and she got clocked quite heavily. I thought she looked quite groggy coming out for the second round, and I thought Pani won the fight pretty comfortably. The judges judged it as 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. So only the one judge really had it close. I know, Danny, you haven't seen that one because obviously you're on holiday, and we appreciate you joining us from holiday.
That's okay.
I might even make you say where you are just to make you try and pronounce it.
Oh my God! Don't. I did have an attempt. We all know what I'm like with names anyway, and names of towns in foreign countries. No, let's not go there.
Did you see the Betchkahoya fight?
I watched it. Yeah.
What did you think of Kahoya's performance?
Listen, I like Betch because
she's a banger.
But she did. I don't think it was the what happened at the end of the first round. She just didn't look sharp for the whole fight.
No.
She was standing there. Normally even when she's standing there, there's a little bit of head movement, like she's gonna kill somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this just looked like she was tired, man. I think that is the reason why she was happy to get out of the round at the end of the first round.
Yeah.
Because she just wanted the round to end. So 10 seconds before it ended, she ended it. She just wasn't there. I mean, I'm not trying to knock her or anything because I don't think that's the end of her, but she looked a bit confused.
Yeah, and I think the fact that she made that error with the 10-second clapper and the buzzer, I think that shows that her concentration maybe wasn't where it should be. Because, how many fights has she had? She's very experienced in the UFC and other places. So, like, that's it's a slip of just a slip of judgment in the moment, isn't it? But here's a question for you.
It's not just a slip. No.
Yeah, it's a bad mistake.
It's not just a slip. I think I've been there myself in my career. It's like if you have a long enough career, things start to go wrong at some point. I mean, they'll come back, but they go wrong at some point because you kind of look. Well, for me, I kind of lost focus. So I was in fights where I could see everyone around the cage. I could hear everything, but I wasn't focused on the fight. That's why I could hear everything else. I was concerned about what this guy said about me. I heard a commentator say something, and it just seems like that's what was happening with her. She just wasn't focused on the fight. Everything else was getting involved, And when you focus on the fight, you can hear. Only thing you can hear outside of the guy in front of you is your corner.
Yeah, it might be a case of because there is no crowd there. Maybe picking up on these more unusual sounds from the outside.
Maybe,
we're putting up. Maybe she's hearing the commentators.
You probably threw her,
yeah.
So, I mean, Pani Kinzad, she first round significant strikes 35-23, second round 33-25, third round 38-21. It's quite convincing. So here's a question for you. I'll ask you, Denniston, because you watched it. But did you think that what Pani hitting her when she did slightly turn away from her where she thought the round was over, or she made that error? Did you think her hitting her was a bit out of order, or did you think no, the fight's on, it's her fault?
Absolutely not. It's like asking me if once a person is down on the floor, should I still hit them even if they look like they're out? Absolutely. Keep hitting them. Imagine
the ref's job.
Hitting her and then losing the fight. You know what I mean? Imagine if she just pulls because she's like being a nice person. It's not the place to be a nice person. That's where you fight. You kick ass until the ref says stop.
Yeah, so that takes us on very nicely to one of the other fights which I wanted to discuss, which was Francisco Trinaldo versus Jai Herbert. finished in 1 minute 30 of round 3. Danny, what did you make of this? We'll talk about the Dan Hardy and the referee Herb Dean in a minute. But what did you think of Jai Herbert's performance and the fight overall?
He was making mistakes, but he was getting his groove. He was making his length work. He was scrambling up off the floor quite well in the second round, and it looked like he was going to turn the tide on Trinaldo. But I was really impressed with Trinaldo's tenacity. He kept coming forward, punching through the punches and kicks that were coming at him, creating opportunities. He had a really good first round and sort of smothered Jai Herbert. Second round, he started to suffer a little bit and got cut. It looked like the tide was really going to turn, and I thought what happened in the second round was going to happen in the third, and it indeed started to look like that. But Jai Herbert, he stayed in that pocket too long. Trinaldo, he's an experienced dude. He's in his 40s, but they know how to stay in there and have hope to win at all times. And as long as you're still throwing punches, you've got a chance to win, and it showed it. It's quite an unusual knockout as well, not just because of what happened with the referee, but it landed on his forehead. Normally they hit you sort of like to the side of the head or to the jaw that knock you out. But this one was right to the forehead, a little bit unusual. But well done, Trinaldo.
Like a late reaction as well. After he,
it was
again. He hit him and then he kind of got a split second, then falls back. Something obviously clicked in his brain. Look, I thought Francisco Trinaldo really showed his experience as a fighter to control large parts of the fight. However, in a minute, or when we get to a certain fight in a minute, I'm going to criticise the UFC a little bit for something I felt that they did to one of the younger British fighters. However, I thought they gave Jai Herbert this fight with Francisco Trinaldo to set him up to win, if that makes sense. Not that, you never know what's going to happen in a fight, of course. But I feel like this fight was set up for Jai Herbert to take a well-known name in his UFC debut and then move on. Didn't happen, and Jai Herbert will come back and he'll, for sure, he's a very, very talented dude. Very, very, I know he's really highly thought of by a lot of the British fighters and the coaching staff. So, I've got no doubt that he will come back stronger. But it was disappointing to see him lose. Denniston, what did you make of this one?
As a fighter, I've seen fighters like him, a lot. And he's the full package in terms of skill level and marketability. You know what I mean? Is a guy that you could see becoming a superstar, not just a champ, but a superstar. And I think that kind of got bigger than the fight.
Okay.
This time out. I don't know about before, but this time out it was a bit bigger than the fight. I remember the corner saying to him about masterclass, that you do the masterclass on him, and I really don't think it was a masterclass. I think his movement was great, but there was a lot of missed opportunities to finish the fight because it's almost like his corner were more of a fighter than him that night.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like they believed in him more than he believed in himself on the night. Yeah. I'm not, again, hopefully if he hears this and watches this, he'll take it as just constructive criticism. But they were doing their job, and he was just a little bit behind. And where he could have finished the fight in the second round with better strikes and just striking,
Yeah.
I think he spent more time feinting and getting out of the way and standing there sometimes in front of the guy than he did actually hitting him. And there's a few times he got countered. When I thought he should have been out a bit more. And I think the reason why, what was his name? His opponent got him with that shot is he just realized that he's not getting punished. He's not getting punished by this younger, quicker fighter. He's getting beat up, yes, but I mean, he's like myself. I can take the shots, and I'm not ever thinking that, I'm getting beaten here. I'm always thinking I'm just one punch away from winning. And the only difference with the shot that finished the fight and the shots that he threw exactly like that previously was that he stepped in just a little bit more. He stepped in just a little bit more, and the shot landed. But he threw that shot, I count maybe about 6 times in the fight. And it didn't land. It just
measuring
landed,
it.
and then that one time he stepped in a bit more and threw it with a bit more carefreeness.
Looser. He was looser with it, wasn't he?
Bang! And it landed. And I think also when it landed, it wasn't just a physical knockout, it was a psychological knockout as well. Yeah. It's like, oh shit, I just got clocked. And then that was the delay. Whereas I think if the tables were turned, the older guy would have been wobbled, but he would have tried harder to stand up. But a young guy, he's never been hit like that. He doesn't know what getting knocked out feels like.
Yeah, I mean, and
first time you get that, you're gonna.
Jai Herbert hasn't been. I don't think he's been knocked out at all. If and if he has, it's not a very often occurrence.
Yeah,
I know he was quite dominant, wasn't he, in Cage Warriors? So I mean,
yeah,
you never know. I suppose as well.
Getting hit like that for the first time, especially if you get hit like that for the first time on the biggest stage in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
You want to get that in your amateur career. You've been through hell. You've lost a few fights, and then you come up and you'll be a bit more tough. A little bit tough.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So, in reference to that finish, so Trinaldo clocks Jai Herbert in the head. He goes down like a tree. He literally falls straight back, doesn't move. And even Trinaldo, you could see he kind of was stood over him, waiting for the ref to stop it. The ref didn't stop it, so he eventually started to hit him. Yeah. But you can hear at this point Dan Hardy is going off on his his mic, but also off his mic as well. He was not happy, and I know Dan Hardy knows Jai Herbert personally. He knows him very well. Whether that has influenced his quite emotional reaction, I suppose. But look, I think it's pretty clear that the ref probably should have stopped there when he went down, because he went down, he wasn't moving. Trinaldo stood over him for probably about 3 seconds before engaging again from on top. Danny, what did you make of that? Did you feel like he should have stopped it as soon as he went down the way he did?
Well, yeah, initially I do think it should have been stopped, but I think you've got to try and look at it from the referee's perspective. It's all about angles. What did you see of the hit land? Because it wasn't like he went down like a plank. He had his head lifted up off the ground, which maybe signaled to Herb Dean that he was still coherent. And I think the thing is, what caused confusion was the fact that he had to run over. So it goes to show there was distance there. So he'd run over, and I think Trinaldo thought the fight was going to be stopped because of how fast Herb Dean ran over. But he was running over really to assess the situation closer. So look, the referees can't be in the most perfect place every single time. There is going to be times when their judgment is going to slip a little. There's going to be times when they're feeling like they're making the good judgment, but they just didn't have the angle to witness the true extent of whatever damage had been taken. So I think everything that Herb Dean done was done completely innocently. We see it really clear. We're getting it on, we're seeing it on
HD screens. I just want to read you this little portion of Dan Hardy put an Instagram post up and made a massive long statement about it. But I just want to kind of point you to one specific part which he has put in his statement. And he says, if you understand what it takes to get in there, then you understand my passion and anger. When I see a fighter left unprotected, it isn't the first time it's happened, and twice in one night is a clear negligence, in my opinion. The referee's job is more important than any person in that building. It's on their shoulders to protect fighters from getting seriously hurt when they're unable to protect themselves. Okay, he goes on to say a few other things. He says, like, if I make a mistake, I look stupid on live TV. If a referee makes a mistake, people are left vulnerable and can be seriously injured. So you get the gist of what he's saying. I'm not sure what the second one he's talking about, so we'll probably get to that in a minute, I would imagine. But Denniston, what's your view of it? Like, was the referee really, was it a really, really, really poor mistake? Was it maybe just a bit slow? Or
listen, no, I wouldn't knock him for that. I'd say he missed a couple seconds. I know that's a long time in fight terms, but let me just change the scenario a little bit. What if, is it Trinaldo?
Yeah.
What if when he ran over after he dropped Jai, he just laid into it? You would have put more shots in than and Herb would have had to watch it a little bit and then stop it. And I think it would have been more dangerous then.
Yeah.
I think more shots would have got off and a lot more energy as well. Because the reason why he stood up was because obviously he thought the guy wasn't going to take, Herb rushed in, he rushed in. They're both looking at each other. Maybe not directly, but they're both looking at each other. So they both pause each other. All right? Yeah. And that little, it's like, who's going to do what? It's human. Yeah. So Trinaldo doesn't bother to give really hard shots. So in that case, I think Jai got off. Jai, is it?
Jai.
He got off because if Trinaldo had run over there and dropped to the floor with the overhand right, that would have been a harder shot, and the shots that followed up 2, 3, 4 more would have probably put him in the hospital.
Yeah.
So when Herb went over there, I think it's like, he gave him the benefit of the doubt. I don't want the referee to jump in and save my life too quick. I want a chance to fight. You know what I mean? So if the other guy
there is that thing as well, isn't it? I mean, I know safety is all important, and obviously that does come first. But by the same token, we are in there knowing we're taking some form of risk.
Yeah.
And fighters are so often really upset when fights get stopped early. Okay, so this one was deemed late, but you can see how and why there might be confusion there. I mean, it landed on his forehead for one. So it looked like it might be just a glazing. It looked like he fell off balance rather than. I mean, we saw it from a really clear view. Like I say, we've got it on our screens. But I tried to look at it from Herb Dean's point of view. His angle was, not as prime to us. He's making decisions for the moment, and he's done what he normally always would do. If you see fighters get knocked down, he runs over and assesses. He knows when they've been knocked clean out. But Jay Herbert, he did have some awareness of what he was doing. He rolled to the side slightly, which is normally not a good sign, but his head stayed off the mat. He didn't fall back like a plank, which is what I'm trying to say. He didn't fall back and had his head bounce off the canvas. It wasn't one of those type of knockouts. Exactly. So very hard. I understand, obviously, if Dan Hardy is friends with this guy, he's got his safety at heart more than anyone else, of course. But what can you do? It's really, really difficult. The refs generally are pretty good, but they are human and they are going to make mistakes, and it's horrible to see. So could it be a case that they've got to be stopping fights a little early? Better to be safe than sorry. But that in turn is going to create some frustrations as well. It's a real difficult one. I think as long as referees are human, you're always going to see these unclear, opinionated stoppages. You're going to have some people saying one thing and some people saying another. It's a real hard one.
Yeah, I think.
Good point. Sorry, is that okay, Si?
Yeah, go
on. When we were coming back, Danny, we had a talk with a ref.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because I don't want to. Yeah, but he had the same issue. He was getting criticized, and is he left the sport now, or do we know if he's gone back?
I don't know. I didn't chase it up anymore then, but I know initially.
Yeah, I don't want to lose a good ref because I know there's some terrible refs out there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when I see a good ref let's say he made a mistake. Let's say flat out he made a mistake. It wasn't that terrible a mistake, man. And this is the hurt business, We're going to get punched a bit more than we want to get punched. So it's not become all of a sudden health and safety inspectors now. Yeah. Like we're gonna be completely protected No, we're gonna get licked sometime, and it's you know.
Yeah, I mean, as an interesting scenario, when Dan Hardy fought GSP, he had some hammerlocks put on him that were horrendous. That it just looked horrendous. But he knew in himself, you know, that he could get through it. I mean, some refs could have stepped in and stopped it, and I'm sure he would have been well upset if they did. You know, so if referees are going to play it safe, I think that fight could have potentially been stopped. But like I say, you know, we're all human beings, and Dan Hardy's, you know, got some history with Jay Herbert. He's his friend, and they probably trained together, therefore. And I think he's just looking out for him, and he see it a certain way. He's got his opinion for it, and clearly he's voiced it. I think it's hard to say that anyone's more right than anyone else with this situation. It was so unclear. I just think people were expecting it to be stopped because of how Herb Dean ran over. But I think he ran over to get a closer look at what was going on. And because he saw Jay Herbert's head was off the mat, he wasn't laying there slumped. He had some form of looking guard. He waited until a few shots were thrown. And then when there was no adjustment to the shots coming in, he then stopped it. But in hindsight, if he had a better angle, yeah, I think Herb Dean would have stopped it from the get-go. But he didn't have the right angle. That's the only thing I could come to think with the situation.
So the one thing I'm interested by, like obviously, like Denniston just said there, we don't want it to become like this kind of health and safety mad thing where you just stop in fights the second someone goes down a bit, you know, a bit ropey. However, if you look at it from the fighter's safety point of view, is it better that he had stopped it last night as after Jai Herbert went down, or is it better if he leaves it go and it's not Francisco Trinaldo, it's another fighter who just gets on top of him and pounds him, and he takes 6 or 7 unprotected elbows to the temple before the fight stopped? Like, which one's better?
Yeah.
So, sorry. Go on,
it's hard to know. Yeah. It's just, again, it's just so hard to know. The ref business, I think, is the most difficult and the most scrutinized job in the combat sports. It really is not an easy position to be in. They're taking the flak. They take people's opinions. You know,
I would love
it's a difficult position.
To interview Dan Hardy about it. So if anyone knows Dan Hardy,
I mean, Dan Hardy's a good guy. Clearly, super intelligent when you hear him commentating. And
one of my favorite commentators.
Yeah, he's very, very good. Analyzes things very, very well. And you know, his opinion, you know, could matter more than mine. You know, he's had a more successful career than mine. Maybe he's got better judgment.
Is he a UK MMA legend though, Danny? That's the question.
Well, he's got the same name as me, so he can share that legend status.
Right. Gonna move on just because we're 35 minutes in already.
Yes.
Very quickly, tell me about Nathaniel Wood's performance. We'll start with you, Danny, because obviously in his last fight against John Dodson, he was not good.
No, he was struggling.
But I think we put that down to maybe it was his debut in the UFC, maybe nerves. John Dodson's one of the hardest hitting.
Dobson's awkward.
Guys.
Very, very awkward. Really good wrestling, really good striking. But Nathaniel Wood, he performed well, and Castaneda performed well also. It was like a kickboxing match, but the difference I saw throughout the rounds with Nathaniel Wood was that he clinched up at times and pressed Castaneda up against the fence and did it quite well to have a little lull in the pace and to keep ahead. To me, he was always steadily ahead, slightly throwing more, slightly more successful. And when push comes to shove, when the battle was getting in the pocket, he clinched up and drove Castaneda up against the fence. And that impressed me. That goes to show that he's making adjustments and not just throwing down hands and punches and kicks and to a point where you could get caught. I mean, we just see what happened with Jay Herbert there, maybe overtrading.
Yeah,
he didn't overtrade, although there's a couple of moments where they was both in the pocket swinging at each other. But Nathaniel did choose to clinch up at times, and I think that just goes to show a little bit more maturity there and his confidence to be in that wrestling range too. I mean, we know him as a striker, but he's a pretty accomplished grappler too. Maybe not known for his wrestling, but he showed that he could control it. Okay, he didn't particularly want to take it to the ground, but he used it to stay proactive against the fence and to make a lull in the pace to keep him ahead on the scorecard. I thought overall it was a very mature performance, and I'm sure we're going to see more good things from this young man.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to ask you both a question about Nathaniel Wood's next opponent in a minute. But first of all, I want to get Denniston, your view of Nathaniel Wood's performance.
I just thought he was not just a little bit, but he's sharper than his opponent. I mean, Castaneda is all right. He's a good kid, but no, he was so much sharper, and he kept the same edge for the whole fight.
I agree.
Same little edge, just a step above, and he was in no rush to finish him or anything like that. And I've watched Daniel fight like ringside because he fought one of my guys before. He fought Ed Arthur. Ed Arthur beat him. And I mean, look where he is now. You know, this is years ago. He's a very intense guy. Just to see somebody that age fighting like a grown man, like I know he's a grown man, but you know, he just seems like a little youngster to me.
Yeah.
And he's fighting with like beyond his years. It looked really good. It looked like if no matter who was in there, like he would have stepped up a little bit more than them and just done the work.
Yeah, for sure. I thought we've talked about fight IQ a lot, you know, throughout all the different shows, and managing fights when things aren't going your way, or if your confidence is a bit low, or you're coming off a bad performance, is managing that fight to find your groove and to go from there. And I thought Nathaniel Wood, considering he was coming off a bad performance, I thought he managed this fight exceptionally well. When he needed to get out of there, he got out of there. When he needed to be in the pocket or, you know, striking, he was doing that. And I thought he did it real well. I was very impressed. And as I was watching it, I was kind of saying to myself, now that's Nathaniel Woods. That's the Nathaniel Wood that I've seen in Cage Warriors, and thought, oh, hello, you know, he could go and do something. So I was really pleased to see that, because I remember when we covered the John Dodson fight, Dan, we were like a bit dumbfounded as to the performance and the Nathaniel Wood that had turned up on that night.
But I put that down to, you know, Dobson's an awkward character. You know, I don't want to take anything away from Dobson.
Some fighters make you look crap.
Styles just go against you.
You fight them and you just look like you don't know your left from your right hand. You know,
John Dodson's a legend of the sport as well.
He is, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
here's the question for you two. Ready? Denniston, you can answer first. Would you, if you were Dana White, and you've got Nathaniel Wood coming off a good performance, you've got Jack Shaw ready to go to the next level, would you pit those two arguably top UK stars, potential top stars, against each other now in a bantamweight clash, or would you keep them as far away from each other as possible until the time's right?
Separate.
What about you, Dan?
It doesn't help.
Sorry, Denniston, I cut you off there.
You're right, Denniston. Yeah, I mean, as a fan, I want to see who would win this fight. I want to see how that fight would go down. Absolutely, I do. But you know, Denniston's absolutely right. You know, they're both, you know, over this side of the water, and of course they will be facing each other if they keep fighting the way they do at some point and keep winning the way they do. But you know, to chop one down now, you know, by matching them against each other it's just not going to be helpful. And I don't think they need to face each other yet. Although, like I reiterate, as a fan, I'd love to see that go down. I really would.
On to the main card we go. I wonder if this was the second fight. I would be interested. I want to know if Herb Dean refereed Krymaev versus Rhys Mckee on the main card, because if he did, then I can understand why Dan Hardy may have called him out for a second time.
Right.
Because Rhys Mckee fight, I thought should have been stopped way before.
Yeah, he got dominated. Really dominated.
Didn't even land a punch, man.
I know you hear the noise, but you know, Kamzat was making a lot of noise.
Yeah.
That's to let you think, that's some heavy punches that is heavier than, like, it sounds heavier than it actually is, man. And if you're the guy getting hit, you want a chance to hit back, so you don't want the fight stop, man.
Okay, so just before I ask you for your opinions both about this, I want to get something off my chest. I mentioned this to Danny just a bit earlier before we started. So, we just talked about Jack Shaw and we talked about some other Nathaniel Woods, we talked about Jai Herbert. The UFC has done quite a good job in recent times of when they've brought in potential next stars, whether it be from Britain or Europe or wherever, they think they've got something special. They've done a good job of building them up slowly, giving them fights that will be capable of winning, and then they give him like a name that's maybe on the end of his career, which will put him up to the next level. And they build them and they build them and they do it. They've done a real good job of doing that. I think they've done a fantastic job of not getting too excited about Jack Shaw, even though me and Danny in recent weeks have discussed about putting him against Aldo. But, that's us getting excited by his potential. They've done a very good job of taking their time, building him up. And then they brought in Rhys Mckee from Cage Warriors. Got a really good reputation as a really good fighter. They've brought him in short notice, signed him to the UFC, and thrown him in with Krymaev, who's already fought once a week ago, so is fully up to speed. Everything. He is good to go, and I felt really sorry for Rhys Mckee because he's never going to turn the fight down because he wants to fight in the UFC. He wants to get his debut. He wants to fight at Fight Island, and I feel a bit like they stitched him up a little bit. They didn't look after the fighter, and of course, he can come back from it, but I feel like they stitched him up a little bit. What do you think about that, Danny? What I just said, and also then
right. If
well.
they match him, I mean, I don't know what kind of fight contract he got in terms of how many. I hope he got at least a 4-fight deal out of this. Because they knew they were throwing him in against the Lions here with this guy.
Gave him a 1-fight deal.
No, I mean that would be ridiculous. I don't think I don't know who his manager is, but I don't think they would do it, and I don't think he would even do it. I just think that would be a step too much. He'd wait his time. He's built up a good enough record to know that he's going to be heading to UFC at some point anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would say yes, this would be unfair if they match him up against another absolute wrestle monster. But I'm thinking and I'm hoping that they will give him someone quite manageable, not a guaranteed win because there's no such thing on the UFC level these days, but give him someone a lot less dangerous. Someone with losses on his record for starters to give you some hope that that he is fallible. In which case, hey, he took the contract. It come with a small price of getting that loss on the record, but a loss on the record against who? Someone who's probably tipped to be the next sensation. With what we're seeing from him. So, that's the way I'd look at it, really. It all depends on who they give him next. And if they give him another absolute stitch up, and I'll be wondering why they brought him in and be in question their integrity about it all.
Yeah, I was a bit annoyed. I mean, he didn't land a punch and he got absolutely decimated. What do you feel about that, Denniston? Like, just about what I said, first of all.
So what I say will not be liked.
No, that's what I like. I like different opinions.
I have no sympathy. Speaking as the underdog, the guy who always gets matched up against the stars to be, the guy who they think, oh, you beat Denniston, you go on to the UFC. Speaking as that guy, I'm like, look, man, if you're in the UFC, you fight whoever's in front of you. I'm not.
Yeah, it's that level, isn't it?
To building up no fighter. Like, look, I'm because I live in Britain and I'm now a naturalized Brit. I want all the Brits to be looked after, but that's just my bias. As a fighter, you go to the UFC, you fight who's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to find out who you are. You do that here locally.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out your game here, get tough here, have your losses here, go to the UFC, be a badass, fight everybody.
That's what I like. Look, Denniston's true old school mentality. I love it, man. I got to know Denniston quite well out there. We had some good conversations, and this guy is an absolute gentleman. But my God, he's an absolute fighter as well. He don't mess around with his words. He's to the point, and I like characters like this because they're not deceiving in any way. They're just going to tell you how it is, and you know, Denniston's not wrong with his opinion. That's the way he sees it, and it's a very harsh way of looking at it. But nevertheless, this is the fight game. So you know, Denniston's not wrong. He's not wrong
100%.
in what he says.
Look, I like the kid. I just think if I have to look after you when you get to the UFC, if I have to protect you from the monsters, then you're not ready for the UFC. That's just how I look at it. I'm not.
Yeah. I get that. I think just to quantify part of what I meant by that is in terms of like he took this fight on real short notice, and my point is, did the UFC just bring him in just to take this beating, if you like, or did they want to sign him? Okay, my question, because if they wanted to sign him because they like his potential and they think he can be a potential star for the company, then I would question why you'd throw him in with someone who's just fought, who's on fire, who's obviously going to go far.
But maybe
that would be my kind of question behind it.
Their gamble is with Khamzat. They're like, we want to build Khamzat, not Rhys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I mean, UFC's cutthroat, isn't it?
Sorry, there's two guys there, and we got enough guys in that division, I suppose. And they've chosen to go with, is it Khamzat, right? To go with that guy as the guy they're gonna market. So feed him the
new guy.
Yeah. But then again, who got the call first? I mean, who got stitched up? I mean, not stitched up, but who had a fight, and then the other person decided to, okay, I'll fight him.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good way of looking at it. We just don't know that background, and there probably was several people
around. It might be that Khamzat was there. He's like, look, I'll fight him. His fighter pulled out. I'll fight him. And then being a fighter, is like, I'm already here, so yeah, I'll fight him. Maybe. Who knows?
Interestingly, so Chimaev, he said in his post-fight interview that he could, he felt like he could fight it again that night, and he looked like it. He fought John Phillips and Rhys Mckee, and he absolutely decimated both guys. And like neither one of those two guys is any sort of mug,
No.
But Rhys Mckee just didn't lay a punch.
No.
So it didn't last long, Dan. But what did you make of the fight?
Yeah, I mean, just impressive from Chimaev. I can't wait to see this guy fight again. I want to see him tested.
Card, he said.
Yeah, I want to see him tested, but I don't think it's going to happen just yet. I think he's going to run through many people. It take a little bit while for people to suss out what he's doing. Obviously, we know he's engaging in the wrestling and doing a Khabib, but you got to try and figure out ways around this. And no one's done it with Khabib yet, and we might have the same issue with this guy. There's some monsters out there.
Chimaev and Mckee, are they middleweights? Are they?
Welterweight. But I think Rhys Mckee's fought predominantly at lightweight. I think just because this is late notice, he did the welterweight, but he'll be fighting down at a lower weight. I'm sure of that. And he's a big lightweight, Rhys Mckee. He's a big lightweight.
Well, this is Chimaev's weight, isn't it? He went up a weight to fight John Phillips, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, Rhys Mckee has fought up at that weight before as well. Yeah. I think he has in recent times, but I think you'll see him go back down.
Yeah, I'm going to have a look at those. What did you think of this fight, Denniston?
Which one?
What did you think of Chimaev? Just his performance.
I mean, recently they're looking, didn't he?
No.
Literally just looking. I think he was thinking to himself, "Look, I just want to be able to fight again."
Yeah.
Don't take one. It didn't take one punch. Just shot him, took him down, boom, beat him up. I don't think it was a late stoppage. No. I think the fight ended when it ended, and I wouldn't knock any ref for that. If that's the one that Herb Dean.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Herb Dean. I just did look.
But a mistake, if we're going to talk on a technical level, Rhys Mckee, one of the mistakes he was making is like how I'd say a jiu-jitsu guy off his back. They come up on that elbow, And the issue with that is if you're going on under pummel or you're wrapping your arm around and you're coming up on the elbow, their body's so close to you, they can reach around and grab that wrist. And, it's awful. That's trying to rotate a wheel with a stick in the spokes. It just ain't going to go around. It just totally transfixes you. And this was the issue, really. I would have liked to have seen him just put both palms down and butt scoop and try and get his back off the mat. But he kept coming up like a jiu-jitsu guy, coming up on one side. You can't do it against a top wrestler like that. They're just going to.
I think punched in the face, sort of like, you know, I've always said to my guys, like, look, the objective is to get up. So if the guy's on top punching you in the face, you got to get up anyway. You're gonna get you're gonna get punched if you get up. Yeah, as well get up and take a few punches as you're coming up. But as soon as they go right back to lying down and put that elbow down and trying to stay safe. Yeah. Again,
I just feel
you can't do that.
When Rhys was having that wrist held the way it did, though, it just stopped his transitions and stopped him being able to escape the position, basically. It was so easy for Chimaev to move around him. He just had so much control. Really did.
Yeah, I think you were talking to Modestus about this.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we discussed it in when we was doing our training sessions.
So, I was just having a quick look at the welterweight rankings. Just to see if there was any other welterweights on there, which I thought, you know, would be a good matchup for Chimaev in the next fight. You got guys like Mike Perry, you got Khabib's brother, Khabib's brother versus Chimaev. That would be quite the.
That match would look.
Oof, that'll sort out the men from the boys. So like a bit further down, you've got, like I say, Khabib's brother. You've got. Like Mckee Gall, I think he would destroy Mckee Gall. I've got to be honest. I don't think there's much point in making that fight. And then slightly higher up, then you've got like Mike Perry. You've got Gunnar Nelson. That would be a good one.
That'd be nice.
Just below Kazmat Chimaev. 2 places above him in the rankings, Donald Cerrone. I would take that one.
Possibly so.
Vincent Luque. Neil Magny, Robbie Lawler, Rafael Dos Anjos, Damian Maia, Michael Chiesa.
A lot of these guys, though, to me, a lot of these guys that you're mentioning, to me, they're on the way out. I think this division is stripping back and becoming a little bit naked. Of course, you've got some talents coming up through.
I haven't got to the top 10 yet, mate.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're not that high. Keep going then.
20s.
So, beg your pardon, Si.
So you've got like top 10 is Stephen Thompson, Anthony Pettis, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Tyrone Woodley, Jorge Masvidal, Leon Edwards. That would be a good one.
Yeah.
Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, I mean, as you get to the real top, you've got guys who are on their way up, but there was still a lot of people coming on the way down. But I don't think that's wrong for him to face some of those guys, you know, because they're still legit in many, many ways. They definitely will test this guy, you know, more without a doubt. But I still think he's going to run through most people until he gets to the top 5.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this question, both of you. You're only allowed to answer one name. You're not allowed to give a reason. You just got to say the name. Out of all the names I just mentioned from the welterweight division, if you were booking the match, who would you put Chimaev against next? Danny.
I will go. I wouldn't mind. It's I don't know who to go for. You know,
right,
this is such a hard.
I'll go first. Yeah. Damian Maia.
Oh, really? I think because of his jiu-jitsu.
Right. While you think, Denniston, you got a name?
I think Maia's just too far ahead. Maybe Mike Perry.
That'd be a good one. I like that.
Yeah, Mike Perry, because he'll take it to him, but I've got a feeling he'll get taken down. But yeah, Mike Perry, I think is a good one. It's such a hard one because I'm trying to think, well, what would make an exciting match? But unless he fights potential contenders to the title, you know, you've got to try and, you know, maybe just keep him in that top 15. You maybe just slightly into that top 10. But I want to see him fight one of the top 5. But I don't think that would be correct at this stage.
Right. Do you
Yeah.
want
So
to read
yeah,
you
what
the
rank is
names
Mike
again?
Perry? What is Mike Perry?
Mike Perry's actually below him somewhere. Like
That might not be.
so. Mike Perry's 30th.
So he's got to go up then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if
really,
you wanted to
ideally,
go,
yeah.
So if you wanted to go up, you'd have to go Tony Martin, Donald Cerrone, Luque, George Neal, Jeff Neal, Neil Magny, Robbie Lawler, Rafael Dos Anjos, Damian Maia, Michael Chiesa, Stephen Thompson, Anthony Pettis, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Tyrone Woodley, Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah, Rafael. I'd say Rafael dos Santos.
Yeah, that's a good one. Dos Anjos, that's a good one.
Yeah, but Santos he never impresses me when he gets put up against the fence a bit too easily. But
I think,
you know, his game is fit.
Say again, sorry.
What do you think about Cowboy?
Yeah, I was just going to say that Cowboy or Robbie Lawler, I think would be quite interesting.
It would be Lawler. I think Lawler will knock him out because his anti-wrestling is good.
Yeah,
Lawler. Yeah,
he's dangerous all times.
His anti-wrestling is good, and I just think it's too big a step ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so next up we had Alex Oliveira versus Peter Sabota. So this one went to decision, which Alex Oliveira won via 30-27, 30-27, 30-27 unanimous. Just give us your overall thoughts of this, Dan.
Yeah, I find this a little frustrating to watch. They was both doing really outward striking that wasn't landing too crisply. Oliveira's perhaps just had the longer reach and was doing some of the better work. But I was seeing his fingers out straight, and I thought, well, it's a matter of time before it goes in the guy's eyes, and it did. I'm surprised he didn't get head up because his fingers were out straight for long periods of time. You know, but he found his groove. He found the way to win. Opened up a nice cut on Sabota. He knocked him down. I think it was at the end of the second round. He knocked him down. He was just getting off the slightly better work throughout. And Sabota just struggled to get anything conclusively off. He did try to take it to the ground, was struggling with that. So he was definitely trying to find ways to win and adjust his game, but he just didn't have the tools on the night. You know, it's back to the drawing board for him, and you know, trying to add more to his skill set.
Yeah, I think so. What about you, Dennis? Then what did you make of Oliveira versus Sabota?
This is how I watched the fight. That's how I watched it. I don't have a great opinion of the fight. Again, like Danny was just saying, it didn't seem like they were there, like, you know.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
See shot, you know what I mean? So I watched it on and off. So I don't really have an opinion.
Okay. It wasn't the best, let's be honest. There was much better fights on this card to talk about.
Yeah.
And one of those was next up. This was, in my opinion, glorious. And that's not just because it was a glorious performance by a British MMAist, a British fighter, but I just loved the psychology of it all, right up to the technical application of the finish as well. So it was Paul Craig versus Antigulov. I'm not going to try and pronounce his first name. Their face-off was a bit tense. They were nose to nose. It was interesting. But right before the fight, Scotsman Paul Craig was giving it the proper. He was marching up and down. He was egging him on, and he was saying, "Come on, come on." He was really, you could see, trying to like rile him up and get him to come to him, and you can see why, Danny.
Yeah, I think he added new elements to the game. Well, say new elements.
Into the trap, mate. Did he fall into the trap which he was setting?
Quite possibly. I mean, you know, we've seen Conor McGregor draw people out and frustrate them. I think he did it classically against Aldo. You know, he almost predicted how Aldo was going to come at him, and he had a set combination that he predicted, and it happened. You know.
And Ben Askren got done by Jorge Masvidal the same way, didn't he?
Yeah.
Jorge egged him on, and he came out looking for the takedown and got knee in the head.
I think he wanted him to be over-aggressive and open up too much, and he certainly did. I was really surprised he didn't try and get round those legs sooner than he did, because it was pretty obvious that he was attempting triangles, and he did float it for a few attempts. But, you know, he's nearly 6'4". You know, he's going to have some long legs on him. and they're heavy, they weigh down on you. And he just stayed there too long. And the thing is, he had Paul Craig's head up against the fence, which limits the mobility of the hips of Paul Craig. And he could have come round. I definitely could have pushed round before the triangle went in as deep as it did. He just played around in that, I call it a no-fly zone. When you've got someone with an open guard like that, that's potentially really dangerous. You don't want to float with your head at that just prime. That's where you get armbarred. That's where you get hammerlocked. That's where you get kimura'd. And he just left his head there just too long. He only has himself to blame, really. Or let's not take away from Paul Craig. I think some of it was strategical on his front, like you were saying. But yeah, I mean, an absolute lesson to be learned from that.
Now, look, I'm not an MMA coach. I'm not an MMA former fighter, current fighter. I'm just a fan. To me, like Paul Craig, he steps to the middle of the cage in the instructions. He goads him, and he's saying to him, basically bring it, because he wants him to attack. And then when he attacks, he suckers him in. And just before he kind of starts setting up for the triangle, Antigulov has got a single leg, looking for a single leg, and Paul Craig just goes down. And in the moment, I was thinking, he obviously doesn't mind being in his back, but he just Antigulov was looking for a finish, and as he's looking for the finish, Paul Craig is just adjusting, and he's just getting this triangle closer and closer.
Yeah.
You don't see many triangles finishes really these days.
Especially by big guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just seeing Paul Felder, they showed a camera angle of Paul Felder's reaction when the guy tapped, and I thought, wow, that's awesome, because you don't see many announcers and commentators reacting like that with that excitement that often to submissions. And I just thought it was fantastic. Denniston, what did you make of it all?
I think the mistake that was made was Antigulov when he was landing his shots, because he was landing those punches in the not the guard but in the triangle were landing hard, and I could hear like good digs going in, and I think that's why he got caught with the triangle. Because at that point, he's thinking he's going to go out before he triangles me.
Yeah.
He just made a bad decision.
Yeah.
And eventually he paid for it. But it's like when you're in that situation, you do have a choice, and sometimes the choice would actually be to keep hitting the guy, especially if you're landing that sweet, you know what I mean? But he, unfortunately, for him, this is normal for
Yes, Craig.
Yeah, this is normal for him. So he just went, struggled through the punches and he just finished this triangle. But the whole time, it was the plan. Because the minute they get the ground, I see the triangle getting set up. It looked like it was getting set up if I remember correctly, from the other side first. The other leg was going to triangle him. But then by the time he got punched a few times and he started to sneak his right leg through, like, oh, hello. It was good. I think it was entirely his intention. Get this guy so mad that he just comes swinging.
Yeah.
So he played a good mental game. If that's what he was actually planning, then that is what we call masterclass.
Oh yeah. So what I like to do with particularly with the British fighters, is I like to have a look at the rankings and see maybe where we could go next. So Paul Craig is ranked 26, or he was before this fight. Just above him at 24, you've got Khalil Roundtree, Devin Clark, Kutalaba. Bit higher than you've got Chris Weidman, Johnny Walker ranked about 13th, and he's 26th. And then you're sort of into the top 10. Is there anyone who sticks out, Danny?
Johnny. I think Johnny Walker and him would be good. I think that'd be a good little matchup right there.
They both got. They're both very tall as well, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right.
So that'd be quite an interesting matchup, size-wise, reach-wise, and they're both good on their feet. But
I'd give the edge.
Craig's probably got the edge in the
on the grappling.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be a good matchup. Yeah, I give the edge for striking for Walker. He's more creative. He's he's just nailed those finishes. You can't ever write him off when he's on the feet.
Coming off 2 losses, though, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He's showing some holes in his game, but that's what UFC is all about. It's going to expose any of the cracks in your game, and it's up to you and your team to pace them in and put them to rights. So hopefully he's gone back to the drawing board and improving his game. If not, he's going to have a hard progression through UFC.
Yeah. So Paul Craig's ranked 26. I'd go with either Chris Weidman, ranked 18, because I think he's a name which he could potentially take. If they're not going to go with that, I would go with either Johnny Walker, Serkinov, or Nikita Krylov, who are 12, 13, and 14. Denniston, anyone stick out for you in the light heavyweight division?
I'm only going off name recognition, and Chris Weidman, like you said, is a good name, but I don't see him beating Chris Weidman.
Yeah, he's too good a wrestler, man.
Maybe a bit too early for him.
Weidman is good everywhere.
Yeah.
He's good everywhere. Saying that, I don't know enough about Paul to say that he really couldn't. I just know enough about Weidman to say that, look, there's a lot of tools. The one tool that Paul showed was that he's good at setting a trap on his back, right? But I didn't see any strikes that really impressed me.
No.
Whereas we all know that Weidman knocked out the greatest striker we've seen for a long time, right?
Yeah, he certainly did.
So
and then broke his leg second time around.
Yeah. So I mean, you can never sleep on, no matter how old the guy is.
So next up, we had Carla Esparza versus Marina Rodriguez, 7 ranked versus 9. And Denniston, we'll start with you this time. What were your thoughts of this one? It ended up on a split decision in Esparza's favour.
Carla, I've never been a fan, man. I like the fact that she's a grafter, but her fights are boring, man.
Yeah.
Her fights are boring to me. She does what she does best, right? So I get it, but I sleep through most of her fights. Because no matter who she's fighting and how good they are at striking, somehow she gets them down in that swamp and makes them look crap. You know what I'm saying?
She doesn't have the size to be visual with it. I mean, she was ground and pounding, for 3 rounds and didn't really mark the other lady's face up too much.
Exactly.
But she come out with some bad wounds herself.
Yeah, she got black-eyed. Well.
Yeah, nice cut, nice big welt over the eyebrow.
So no, I'm not a fan. I'm not. Look, I don't care what your style is. I like fighters, but when you just hold on to somebody and just tap them to score points, I don't see that as fighting. I want to see you trying to finish the fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Finish it. However you do that, whether it's a submission or a ground and pound or whatever, but don't just tap for points, man. It was up to the fight until somebody's out, somebody's sleeping.
Yeah, so. I think that's fair enough. What did you make of it, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, utterly impressed with her wrestling. It's just second to none. Denniston's right to say, she's forcing her style on people, and it's not always the most visual. But in defense of her, it's for other people to try and find an answer to her game, for one. And she was adding in the leg lock attempts. Now, I'm not always a fan of going to your back, but she was doing it towards the latter side. It actually nearly got her in trouble. Doing it in the last sort of minute is okay, but it did get her in a little bit of difficulties. But I think she was trying to add to that a little bit of excitement, trying to go for those leg lock finishes. And a couple of them did look like, she was getting them bed in. But Rodriguez was just showing no wincing of pain. So she was just so resilient to it. Maybe because her legs were so long, it was hard to get the leverage on it, because Carla is quite a bit shorter. But I think that Carla won all 3 rounds. I found it hard to know why one of the judges gave it to Rodriguez. I'm presuming on damage, but she spent 3 rounds most of the time on her back. Yes, when she was on the feet, she was creative. And yes, she created some nice elbow opportunities. She was feeling out submissions, but not really getting, no one was sitting on the edge of the seat expecting one to go on. To me, Carla won all 3 rounds. It looks like she's going to get herself back into title contention again.
Yeah, it looks like, doesn't it? I think that's probably the direction they were going, particularly by the
Yeah,
by the
I think
post-fight.
to sum it up, that the fight that Carla's going to have that's going to be exciting is always going to be the one where she loses, because she's going to foul with the takedown, she's going to get submitted with something funky, or someone's going to resist the takedowns and strike her up, and it's going to become a good fight because of that, which is kind of unfortunate for the styles, but styles are styles, and it's something that you have to deal with in the UFC or in any fight promotion, to be fair. And right now her style's working predominantly for her, so we got to see other ladies look, take notes, and try and find a way around the wrestling.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get to something a little bit more interesting, which was Fabrico Vadoom versus Alexander Gustafson. It didn't last very long, but it was certainly interesting as Gustafson made his heavyweight debut. He's normally a light heavyweight. Obviously, he famously took John Jones to the limit all those years ago.
Yeah.
Danny, we'll start with you first this time. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, and Gustafson to me has not looked himself for a few years. I think ever since he first fought Jones, I think when he looked his best, he's not been as good. And I had Vadoom down to win this one, if you remember from when we was discussing this before. His grappling's really good and really, really tight. And Gustafson is someone that will mix it everywhere. Clearly, he didn't want to be on the ground, but he can mix it anywhere and everywhere. But he made a mistake with the way he tried to scramble up. He turned his back away, got tripped down again, and then he got that 2-on-1 control taken on the arm. And against someone of Vadoom's level on the ground, that's really hard to recover from. It gives you back control, it gives you the armbar attack, it gives you potential side control. That 2-on-1 control on their arm like that, where they have the wrist like a figure of 4 control, that's an actual position as well as a potential submission. It is really controlling, and he demonstrated it there amazingly. Even when he went belly down, he had full control of what was happening and where. And in my mind, as soon as I saw him latch on, I thought, hey, this is really early in the first round. This ain't going through the first round. I would have been very, very surprised. Gustafson really should have been fighting to stay out of this sort of scenario for as long as he can. So when he is in that scenario, he's slippery. Vadoom is more tired. He's not a young man anymore. And then get out of those sort of situations when the cardio tank is less. But so early on to give up that control, you've got to lose against Vadoom.
Yeah, yes, you are. Denniston, what did you make of this one and Gustafson's stint at heavyweight?
Yeah, no, at heavyweight, no. It shouldn't be a heavyweight. Just how I look at I say fight at the weight you walk around at, I get it. But he looked outgunned when it comes to weight. It looks like he's not going to win that strength contest. And they like to say it's technique beats strength. It doesn't. Not when the technique is equal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If the guy is better at the particular technique than you are, and also bigger, you're not going to win that, are you? Mm-hmm. So also what you said, Danny, he was out of that. He was up. He turned his back.
Yeah.
Turned his back and got taken down again. And then I knew it was over the minute that happened.
Yeah. It was not. It wasn't a technical stand up at all.
Yeah. I thought he should have been looking to take the fight into the third round.
Yeah, absolutely, Denniston. I totally agree. This was the longevity of the rounds was where it was at.
Yeah, he should have been looking to take it into the third round, and he didn't. He looked like he wanted to. Well, he didn't look like he knew what he wanted to do. So he was there, and his fight night, but it looks like he's past his. And I don't mean this in the sense that he's too old, but it looks like he's past Kieran.
Yeah.
You
got to wonder what's going on in his training camp.
He retired.
He's just not evolved.
He retired.
Yeah. So I mean, that's when I say a fighter should retire. When they're no longer hungry, they're not showing up with a plan anymore. Then he should retire. But if you're coming here to kick ass, and we can see that fight in you, then you're never too old. That's how I look at it anyway.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And at the end of the day, he retired, and he was done after his last fight. And for whatever reason, he's come back for this one. It didn't work out. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'll be interested to see if he retires again or whether he intends to keep going. Be interested. The next up, we had Marcirico Hua versus Antonio Ruggiero Noguera in their trilogy fight. The trilogy, which has never ended, has lasted over a long space of time.
From before I started fighting.
Wow.
No.
Roa won via split decision. Denniston, we'll go with you first. Tell us about this rivalry and then tell us about this fight.
Not to sound like a dick, but this fight was unnecessary.
I agree. Absolutely agree with that.
Massively agree.
It's at no point should you be like, just for nostalgia, I'm gonna go have a fight.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what Bellator sort of put on those sort of matches.
Yeah.
Huh?
Bellator put on those sort of matches, not UFC. It's unusual for UFC to do that. Yeah.
So no, it was unnecessary for me, and I think these guys now they can only fight each other.
Yeah.
You fight these young guns coming up, you get killed.
Yeah.
Because they're not moving anymore. They used to move. They used to move like Shogun. I'm a big fan of Shogun. Back in the day when he used to head move like Tyson, I'd love that because you'd come in and even if you're catching him, he's catching you. You know. Lil Nog, same thing. His boxing was immense back in the day, but now he's just in shots.
He looked wooden, didn't he? His crosshand was falling short. Yeah. His timing looked. It's not even the timing. It's just the speed of his punches are slowed up. He was never the quickest anyway, but he relied on timing. But I think
telegram.
Yeah.
Send it, and then the punch comes after.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so similar to the previous matchups they've had. Really similar.
I feel it's now very obvious. It's like when Muhammad Ali had his onset of Parkinson's, and he was slurring his speech, and nobody would tell him because it's a cash cow.
Yeah.
It's almost the same thing now we're watching, which will become sad eventually. At the moment, you're still seeing two legends, and I'm not gonna ever stop calling them legends. These guys pay for all of us, But I think they should make better decisions now. I don't think the fight was necessary.
No, me neither. I didn't need to see it. Didn't want to see it. Didn't really care about it. And I think, Danny, you hit the nail on the head in that when you said this is this kind of sort of fight that Bellator would have put on,
Yeah.
Is what it is, I suppose.
I mean, it has its market out there. Don't get me wrong, but not for the hardcore fan that wants to see who's the best of today. This is two guys that are past their peak. I mean, Rua's a little younger in years. He's still got some fight in him, but he's past his peak. And Noguera, long past his peak, he really is, and he did amazing things back in the day. But yeah, it's sad to see them get in there and do it because this is when things happen to their health. He's been in there for a long time, and it's not just the fights, it's all the rounds you've done in your training. There's mileage on that clock, and you could see it by the way he moved. It was a little painful to watch. Entertaining, it was. They were both going at it, both bruised up, scuffed up, and it did get interesting. Shogun won that first round with the takedown, and the second round Noguera won because he sort of body shunted him, knocked him off balance, and got the top position and probably pinched the round back. So it did leave it all for the third round. And for me, Shogun just had more tools. He was looser. He's got the kicks. He can wrestle better than Noguera can. Noguera's knees clearly are shot as well. Another area that he looked really wooden with his leg positioning.
His leg was just falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was painful to watch at times. It really was, and slightly sad. But it is what it is. It was still obviously a draw. There were fans out there. I don't want to say anything harsh. They're legends in their own right, but I just feel that there's just no need to have these fights go, especially as they faced each other now for the third time. Just no need.
Yeah, not on the UFC stage anyway, I don't think.
No.
Okay, and then finally we had Robert Whitaker versus Darren Till, which I think effectively was a number one contender match. But I guess we'll find out about that in in the meantime, Danny, what did you make of this and Darren Till's performance after his
Till
not
looked
so
good.
fun?
Yeah, he looked
last
good
time out?
in the first round, and I was thinking, hey, I've seen him
Here
use
we
similar
go.
strategies. Yeah, and it was looking good. But Whitaker, this guy's an experienced dude, and he's got a broad skill set. He can wrestle damn good. His grappling's good, and he ain't no slouch on the feet with his kickboxing either. He's got a background in striking too. But he was getting tagged up a little bit in that first round. It did have me thinking, Till's got a game plan. It's looking like it's coming to fruit. After that, the rounds were just slipping away because Whitaker was throwing shots, clinching up, disengaging, throwing strikes. He was just broader in his attacks. He was hounding the lead leg of Till, and I think it was really troubling him. So that made it harder for Till to settle his striking after that first round. I think the leg began to give him jip, and it just gave a focus point for Whitaker. And Till just couldn't find an answer, couldn't find a way around it, and the rounds just slipped away from him one after the other. I think was it a split decision? Did you say? Was that a split? I think it was, wasn't it?
Unanimous decision, 48.
Oh, it was unanimous. I can't remember because there was one that was a split, and I was surprised about it. But Whitaker's looking good. He really is. I think maybe it was a little rust in that first round. Not to take anything away from Till, but from the look of what the other rounds went, it looked like he got his groove and he started using the full spectrum of MMA. And Till was not expressing that full expression. He was on the receiving end of it somewhat.
Well, I said last week, Dan, when we made our predictions, that whilst I would, I really wanted Darren Till to win because I felt like in his last fight, he just didn't look himself. And I felt it really affected him as well. Like you could see how disappointed he was. I really wanted him to put on a good performance. But I felt that Robert Whitaker, all round, he's got everything.
He is rounded.
MMA-ist who can do some real impressive stuff. And I felt that it kind of went that way. Darren Till started well. Robert Whitaker showed his skills and, paid off at the end. Denniston, what did you think?
Yeah, I pretty much just echoing what you guys are saying. I think Till, being the bigger guy, he had the first round because he looked. It's obvious to me that he's bigger than Whitaker. Whitaker looked like he's going to be small with every fight. He just looks small for the win. Yeah, and I think the power of Till in the round one is the only reason why I would give him that round.
Yeah,
because everything would bounce off him. But by his second round, his leg was hurting. His movement kind of slowed down. And at this point, neither of them, I don't think, thought they were going to finish the fight. And they set to a groove. And unfortunately, Till started playing catch-up.
Yeah. A pattern had emerged.
Like a step behind. I don't think Whitaker was that far ahead. Was a step behind. And his angles that he hit from. His head was down there, and his hand was up,
Yeah.
So I think that kind of threw off, Till.
So tell me, Dan, obviously Darren Till lost. He's lost 2 on the bounce after looking very impressive. Should he be worried, or do you think, did he show you enough during this fight to suggest?
Yeah, I still think he's a talent. I still think he's got stuff to offer. He's clearly really dangerous. He just has to have an A, B, and C plan. He come in with plan A. It worked in the first round. The second round, Whitaker made adjustments and started finding his groove, and Till couldn't find answers to him. He needs to broaden his spectrum of attacks and counters. When someone uses this MMA type of striking into the clinch, he's threatening the takedowns. You don't even have to score with the takedown. Just the threat of the takedown as you're throwing your hands can be enough to stop that good striker coming back at you. Now, he did have, he successfully landed a couple of hard shots, but it's almost like looking at Woodley, although Woodley's vastly different. I'd say Till was much more active striker. But Till, it's almost like we had to wait and hope that he was going to land something really huge that led to a finish. And you can't always bank on that. I mean, it can be there. We saw that with Trinaldo. It can be there. And I felt like maybe he fell into a pattern of thinking, okay, like, I've just got to swing in a big elbow, well timed. And he did. He cut the head. I think it was in the final round, wasn't it? He cut quite nicely Whitaker's head. But Whitaker then wrestled him up, went round the back of him. He did what an experienced, top, world-class fighter should do. He adjusted to the circumstance and the situation to hand. He got cut. He didn't know how bad it was. He just knows he was bleeding. And he took away the striking element by wrestling him up, not even where he needed the takedown. He was just smothering him. Like a bit what I was saying with Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood used it very few times, but he was using it at the right times. And that's what I saw from Whitaker. Yeah, really impressed. I'm sure another fight down the line, he could be fighting for the title again, if not, sooner. Maybe next fight. Who knows?
Yeah, 100%. There's a couple of people I wouldn't mind seeing Till go with now. He's going to have to. He's not going to get Whitaker unless they rematch with Whitaker. He's probably not going to get the Stylebender fight. But next week we have ranked number 8 and 9, Derek Brunson versus Edmund Shabazian fighting.
Yeah.
Maybe the winner of that could get Darren Till, who's ranked number 5, and then if he.
But they're both hard fights, man. They're hard options. Really hard options.
Look at that top 10, mate, in the middleweight, and there isn't an easy fight. There's not even a fight where I look at it and I go, Darren Till would definitely win that.
Yeah.
Darren Till could beat any of them on his day, but there isn't one of those fighters where I look and I think, yeah, that would be the way to go if you want to get him a win. It is what it is. That's why it's the top of the tree. That's why that's why it's the best company in the world, I guess, for MMA. But yeah, it was a good card. I'd be interested to see where they go next. There was one question I wanted to ask you both before we finish, and that was Brett Johns, Welsh bantamweight in the UFC, on a 2-fight win streak after he's fought some big names in the past, looking to break back into the top 15. He called out Uriah Faber for a bout. Looks like it could be the upcoming fight.
Yeah, do you know what? That's going to be interesting. I'll tell you why that's going to be so interesting, because how's Brett Johns going to go about this? Does he want to test his takedown game against someone like Uriah Faber, who he knows not an easy guy to take down? He's got very, very good wrestling, particularly in the MMA arena. You don't seem to be being taken down very often. So maybe we'll see Brett Johns try and broaden his spectrum with the striking against Faber. That we know Faber's showing weakness in the striking. He's crude, but just full of energy. He always comes in fit. He can bang hard, and we know that he's in there till the end. He's in there to win. We've seen that when he fought Aldo with those leg kicks. It was one of the most punishment I've ever seen a human take and still get through it. There was another incident as well. I don't think it was that same fight where he broke both hands, so he's throwing nothing but elbows and forearms. That's utterly impressive. Yeah, I did see Uriah Faber actually out there, and I really wanted to get a picture with him, but with the situation the way it is, you feel like you can't approach anyone. But I'm sure Modesta's success will be going out to UFCs more often, and I'll get that photo with him, because I used to watch him back when it was King of the Cage, and I remember thinking, wow, that kid's going to go far. And I'm talking a lot of years ago, King of the Cage. That's something that I think ceased to run. Sorry, Denniston?
I remember that.
Yeah.
Back then.
He was on a tear.
And he goes, "Hi, Mom."
Yeah. Absolutely likable guy, lovable guy, and been amazing in the sport. He really has. And to think that he's still in there in that weight division at 40. I mean, we see people in the heavyweights, light heavyweights, going on to their 40s and still competing. It's a few times being effective at that age, but to be at his weight and 40 years old and still relevant is utterly impressive. It goes to show really good, clean living, that strong mental ability to keep training as hard as it takes to get back in there. I mean, one of the reasons I retired was I was not willing to do what was needed to do to keep making weight, and I didn't have it anymore. When as soon as I questioned it, that was answer to me. Hey, time to step down, time to step out. I don't want this anymore. And you make a solid decision. To me, you only retire once, and I felt.
Interestingly, Dan, sorry to cut you off, mate.
Yeah, that's okay.
I just noticed. So Brett is ranked, or he's before Fight Island. They're going to redo the rankings this week, I believe.
Yeah.
But he's ranked 21 in the bantamweight. Nathaniel Wood 22. So Brett Johns, I would assume, is probably going to go up at least 2 places in the rankings.
At least, I would say.
If not more. If he doesn't break into the top 15 after his performance on Fight Island, he's going to be looking to. Uriah Faber ranked number 10.
A brilliant fight for him.
I've got to say, if he was to beat Uriah Faber, he would 100% be in the top 15, if not the top 10.
Yeah, it's one of those situations that if he loses against him, that's no slouch either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You won't be dissed for that because, like I say, Faber's still relevant in that top 15. I don't know whether he truly is top 10 anymore, but he's still definitely top 15. Anyone in the top 15, if they have their night, they're going to put an end to your night. So Brett Johns has to come with solid game plan. He has to have everything firing on all cylinders. But from what I've seen of him of late, that he knows how to find that.
Chin on him.
You know, he finds that position, and I think he's going to do well. Absolutely that.
I think Brett. I do think if he can beat Uriah Faber and get into the top sort of 10, 12, he's got to have his eyes on a rematch with Pedro Munez or Aljamain Sterling, who were ranked 4 and 3. Because he fought him when he was young. He fought him early in his UFC career. Big names, so it'll be interesting.
Absolutely.
Denniston, what do you think of Brett Johns potentially versus Uriah Faber?
I think it's more of and not to put down Brett, but I think it's more of a Hail Mary.
Okay.
I think Uriah is just so skilled, so powerful, explosive.
He's dangerous. Absolutely dangerous.
A deadly guy I want to see Brett Johns, take some fights on his level right now and move up the rank rather than go for Uriah.
He had a harsh introduction.
The thing is, he's only lost 2 fights, haven't he? And that's against Aljamain Sterling and Pedro Munez. Every other fight he's won. And I think where he is now, the age he's at now,
how old is he?
I think he's 29.
Okay.
Let me just double check that. He might not.
Yeah, so he has to kind of get moving, really.
Yeah, and I think he's ranked 21. I think that in his eyes, he's thinking, right,
this guy get. I
these guys
look at these guys as kids.
Yeah. I know. We're getting so old now, Denniston.
You said 29. I'm like, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I still think. Maybe if you catch Uriah on a bad night.
I've been really impressed with Uriah Faber though recently.
Yeah, he's on the way out. He's not the top tier. Like I say, I don't think he's in the top 10 anymore, truly. But I do think he's still legit top 15. And anyone in that top 15, they have their night. You're going to have a difficult night yourself. So he's got to be prepared. And prepared, I'm sure he will be.
I respect anybody for trying to step above what we think they should.
Brett Johns 28.
Yeah. Okay. So he's got time.
Yeah,
he's got time.
Right. I could speak to you guys all night. However, I'm going to have to call it a day there. I've thoroughly enjoyed the show. Thoroughly enjoyed last night's UFC. Denniston, thank you very much for your time, my friend. I've really enjoyed having you on. It's been cool.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I've known Danny for years. When I just started MMA.
Long time ago, yeah.
A few fights.
Yeah.
But it was like a big family. So we didn't really have a bond.
Yeah,
Fight Island, we're like...
We hit it off very well. Like I say, with Denniston, he don't hold back on his comments that he'll say to you. But I like that. It just gets it all out there. There's nothing to be hidden behind. He's one of life's very few hard men. And being a hard man don't mean you're a bad man. This guy's a hard man. He's got a good heart. And I've really bonded a good friendship that's going to go on for the rest of our lives. And, if anyone wants to come training down at BST, and Denniston's promised to come up, and I hope he would point out some experience moves and that for my students. He was coming up with some really good stuff when I saw him training with Modestus, some high-level stuff that even like ignited new ideas for myself. So I've got a good feeling Dennis is going to add new aspects to my game, and I hope and pray that I can add something to his. Yeah. So get down to BSC.
Yeah, check out the website.
Already, like a few of my guys showing them you know, we won't talk about it now, but yeah, some of the stuff that you showed to Modestus, I'm like, oh, it's just a tweak, just a little tweak on what I already do, but it's amazing. This is the thing about
just ideas.
it's just, you know, you have the basics, you're just tweaking it.
Yeah, absolutely. And where's your gym base? Because one of the things as well that I promised to go down with some of my guys to train at Denniston Gym, but where's that located?
Hemel Hempstead.
Right. Yeah. So look that up, guys.
I'll give you some details, man.
Yeah. And you trained Ed Arthur, who was BAMA champion. He was a massive standout. To me, this is a guy that should never have retired. He should have gone on. He should have definitely been in the UFC. Ed Arthur.
He would have been in there by now. He fought Peter Yan, man. Come on, man.
Yeah. Fought big names. Fought big names.
You know what? Not everybody's gonna go all the way.
Yeah.
Some people don't want as much as you wanted for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the sad part of martial arts. Where you're like, oh, come on, you could do so, but yeah, I want something else. You know?
Yeah. But sorry, another one for you. It'd be good to get Denniston on to do a podcast about his career, because he's had a big career. You know, he's had many more fights than I ever racked up. This guy's really experienced both the rough end and the bright end of British MMA. He'll have a lot to say about it. And you know, we did engage in some really good conversation. And same for Gintis, to be fair. I mean, Gintis was fighting bare knuckle MMA back in the 90s. The stories, he's someone to have on as well. The stories he was saying, I was absolutely enthralled and intrigued. It really was the complete grassroots of MMA.
He was fighting before the UFC.
It's before the UFC, yeah. This was bare knuckle stuff. You know, this was, you know, in the back alleyway sort of stuff. But great stories. He animates them really, really well, and it'll be good viewing for the podcasts.
100%, mate. Yeah, definitely. I'm always up for that.
Well, guys, thanks for having me, man.
Thank you, Denniston, taking the time. And let's do it again, Denniston, yeah? We'll get you on again in the near future. Great having your analysis.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you so much.
100%. Guys, check out www.bstacademy.co.uk. Follow at Danny Batten FS on Instagram and Twitter. Follow all the Ace Podcast Nation accounts. That's the hub for all our different shows and series. And also follow Denniston on Twitter. And I think, what was your Twitter? It was MMA
X Fighter.
MMA X Fighter on Twitter.
And the MMA X Gym as well.
MMA X Gym. Do you want to give out the website address for that?
Yeah, website address is www.mmaxgym.com.
Okay, I'll put the links to all those in the description as well. So guys, check it out. Have a look. Two legends of MMA. Thank you very much, both. And we'll see you next week.
Let's do this.
Fight show with a new UFC card and probably a new guest.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, lads.
Yeah. Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome, Danny